Welcome to Akund Audioverse. Here, we bring you the legend of Fang Yuan, a man who defies fate, shatters heaven's will, and walks the path of true immortality. If you love stories of cultivation, strategy, and the relentless pursuit of strength, then you've come to the right place. Subscribe now, turn on the bell icon, and become part of our ever-growing Audioverse family.
Chapter 12. Green bamboo wine is fragrant, Goo Master flaunts power. Right now everything comes down to the flower wine monk's treasure. If I can find it, all my problems will be solved. If I don't find it, all these issues will greatly slow down my speed of cultivation. If that happens, I'll lose out to people at my age in cultivating. I don't understand. I've spent more than a week trying to attract the liquor worm to appear. Why do I still not see it? Fang Yuan frowned and racked his brains. It was like putting food into his mouth, but still not knowing how it tasted. Suddenly there was a loud noise, interrupting his thoughts. Fang Yuan looked at the direction of the sound, realizing that the 6 hunters seated around the table at the middle of the hall were heavily drunk. The atmosphere around them was fiery and their faces were all red. "Brother Zhang, come, drink another cup." "Old brother Feng, we brothers admire your abilities. You took down a black-skinned wild boar alone. What a man. This cup of wine you must drink, or else you'll be disrespecting us." "Thank you brothers for your sincerity, but I really can't drink anymore." "Brother Feng can't drink anymore. Perhaps you dislike this wine because it's not good enough." "Waiter, come over, give me some good wine." The noise was becoming louder. It was obvious that the group had drunk a lot. The waiter hurriedly went over and said, "Well, good sirs, we do have good wine, but it is quite expensive." "What, you're afraid we won't pay up?" When the hunters heard the waiter, quite a few of them stood up and stared at the waiter. They were either big and tall or thick and burly in stature, capable and vigorous in a threatening manner, each having the courage that mountain men possessed. The waiter quickly said, "I would not dare to look down on you brave men. It's just that these wine is really expensive. 1 jar costs 2 pieces of primeval stones." The hunters were stunned. 2 primeval stones was definitely not cheap. It was the sum of 2 months of the normal average household monthly expenses. Even though hunters earn more from hunting when compared to ordinary mortals, like how sometimes a black-skinned wild pig could be worth half a primeval stone. However, hunting was risky, and a mistake could turn the hunter into prey. To the hunters, using 2 primeval stones just to drink a jar of wine was just not worth it. Is there really such an expensive wine? "Boy, you aren't trying to lie to us, right?" The hunters were shouting about, but their voices felt a little timid, unable to back out of the situation with grace. The waiter kept telling them he wouldn't dare. The hunter called Brother Feng saw that the scene was not right, and he hurriedly said, "My brothers, let's not spend any more. I can't drink anymore, let us drink this wine another day." "What, you can't say that, brother. This is—" The rest of the hunters were still shouting, but their voices started to fade away. One by one they sat back in their seats. The waiter was also a shrewd person. When he saw this, he knew that he was not able to sell the wine anymore. However, this situation hardly surprised him. As he was about to retreat, a young man's voice came from the table at the dark corner. He, hilarious. Each one of them blindly shouting for nothing. "If you can't afford to buy wine, you should just obediently keep your mouth shut and go to the side." When the hunters heard this, one of them immediately retorted in anger, who said, "We can't afford it. Waiter, bring over that jar of wine, I'll give you the stones, 2 pieces of it." "Oh, give me a moment, sir, I'll get it." The waiter did not expect such a turn of events. He hurriedly replied and turned to grab a wine jar and brought it over. This wine jar was as big as the common jar of wine, but the moment it was uncorked, in that very instant a refreshing and mellow fragrance filled the entire cafeteria. Even the old man sitting alone at the window could not help but turn his head over when he smelled the wine aroma, and he gazed at the jar of wine. It was definitely good wine. "Dear guests, it's not bragging. This is the green bamboo wine. The entire village only has one in, which is us. Smell the fragrance." The waiter inhaled deeply as he said this, his facial expression full of satisfaction and enjoyment. Fang Yuan was moved. This inn-waiter was really not boasting. In the Gu Yue village there were 3 taverns. The wines sold there were the common rice wine, muddy wine, and other similar common wine. In order for Fang Yuan to attract the liquor worm, he continuously bought wine for 7 days. It was naturally that he was aware of the prices. Several of the hunters looked at the wine jar before them. They were consumed by alcohol addiction. Each of them twitched their noses and swallowed. As for the hunter who bought the wine in a moment of anger, his expression was even more interesting. A layer of remorse and anger appeared on his face. After all, this jar of wine was the value of 2 primeval stones. I was too rash and bought the wine by impulse. This waiter is not too typical. He immediately brought the wine. Now the cork is unsealed. Even if I want to return the goods, it is too late. The more the hunter pondered, the more distressed he felt. He wanted to return it back, yet he was unable to do so in fear of being humiliated. At last he could only bang on the table and said with a strong smile, "Damn, this wine is good. Brothers, please drink all you want. Today this wine is on me." At this moment the young man at the table in the corner hissed, "How is this small jar of wine enough for 6? If you have the guts, then go buy a few more jars." The hunter was furious when he heard this and stood up in a rage, his eyes fixed on the young man who spoke. "Brat, you sure have a lot of words. Come, stand up and fight me." "Oh, then I will stand up." The young man got up from his seat as he heard the hunter's remark, grinning as he walked out from the shadows. His body figure was tall and thin, his skin pale. He was dressed in navy battle robes and looked clean and neat. His head wore a blue headband. His upper body had a jacket that showed his thin and weak shoulders. The lower body had long pants, the feet were covered in bamboo sandals, and the calves were tied. The most important thing about him was the green belt on his waist. The middle of the belt was a shiny piece of copper. On the copper plate was a black word. "It's a rank 1 Gu master." The hunter clearly understood what this manner of clothing represented. He drew in a deep breath, the anger on his face dissipating, replaced by alarm. He had never imagined that he actually provoked a Gu master. "Didn't you want to fight me? Come on then, hit me." The young Gu master walked slowly towards the man, a playful smile on his face. But the hunter who had challenged him earlier had become frozen like a sculpture, unable to move from his spot. "Maybe you guys can all come at me together, that works too." The young Gu master slowly walked to the hunter's table, casually speaking. The expressions on their faces had changed. Some of the hunters who had drunken red faces had gone pale suddenly. Each of their foreheads was drenched in cold sweat, and they felt restless, too afraid to even breathe heavily. The young Gu master stretched out a hand, picking up the green bamboo wine jar. He put it under his nose and sniffed, smiling. He said, "It sure smells good. If my lord likes it, then please feel free to take and drink it. It is an apology from me for offending my lord." The hunter who provoked him earlier hurriedly replied and cupped his hands together before his chest, pushing a smile to his face. Unexpectedly, the young man's facial expression changed fiercely. With a loud crack, the jar fell into pieces on the ground. The Gu master looked cold as ice, his gaze sharp like a sword. He hissed angrily, "You think you have the right to apologize to me? You bunch of hunters must be really rich, even richer than me, since you guys spent 2 primeval stones to drink wine. Do you have any idea how upset I am over primeval stones right now? You actually dare to show off your wealth in front of me at this time. You mortals can even compare to me. We wouldn't dare. To offend my lord, it is a heinous crime. We mortals did not mean to offend you. These are our primeval stones. Please accept Lord Gu Master." The hunters quickly got on their feet and took out the primeval stones they had. But how could these mortals have money? All they pulled out was just bits and fragments of primeval stones. The biggest fragment piece was no bigger than a quarter of a primeval stone. The Gu Master did not accept these primeval stones, but he did not stop sneering. He used his hawk-like gaze and swept past the entire cafeteria. The hunters that he scanned over lowered their heads. The old man who sat at the window watching the scene also quickly turned his head to avoid the Gu master's gaze. Only Fang Yuan watched quietly, void of hesitation. The clothing that this young Gu master was wearing was the uniform that only formal Gu masters could wear, so Fang Yuan was not qualified to wear it. Fang Yuan would only receive it from the clan after he graduated from the academy. The word 1 on the copper piece on the belt of the young Gu master was to indicate his position as a rank 1 Gu master. However, he was already around 20 years or so, and the aura of primeval essence that his body emitted seemed to indicate that he was rank 1 upper stage. Starting cultivation at 15 years of age and only reaching rank 1 upper stage at around 20 years of age, this showed that the young Gu master was only of D-grade talent, which was a grade worse than Fang Yuan. There was a high possibility that this man was only a logistics Gu master, not even counted as a battle Gu master. However, even if that was the case, when facing these 6 brawny hunters, it was more than sufficient. This was the gap of power between a Gu master and a mortal human. With power, one can be at the top. This is the nature of this world. No, actually any world is also the same. The big fish eats the small fish, and the small fish eats the shrimp. It's just that this world shows it even more openly, Fang Yuan mused secretly. All right, Jiangya, you already taught them a lesson. Let's not further embarrass these mortals. If it gets out, even if you are not embarrassed, I would be. The other young person sitting in the corner voiced out. When everyone heard the voice speak, they realized that this young person was a woman. The young Gu master called Jiangya stopped sneering as his female companion chided him. He did not even bother looking at the fragments of primeval stones that the hunters had taken out. These stones were not even the sum of 2 primeval stones. He was definitely not interested in it. He flicked his sleeve and walked back to his original table. As he strode back, he said maliciously, "If you think you have the guts to continue drinking, then go and drink green bamboo wine. I want to see who still dares to drink this wine." The hunters all lowered their heads, acting like 6 obedient sons after being scolded. The strong aroma of wine filled the entire cafeteria. The hunter who bought the wine felt his heart aching as he smelled the fragrance. After all, he had spent 2 primeval stones on this wine, yet he never got to drink even one mouthful. Fang Yuan put down his chopsticks. He had eaten enough. As he sniffed in the wine aroma, his eyes flashed for a moment. Then he took out 2 primeval stones and put them on the table. "Waiter, give me a jar of green bamboo wine," he said indifferently. The whole scene froze. The young Gu master called Jiang instantly stopped in his footsteps. The corners of his mouth twitched and he exhaled. He had just finished his warning, yet right after he was done, Fang Yuan wanted the wine. This was like specially stepping over him and slapping him in the face. He turned around and narrowed his eyes, shooting a cold glare at Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan calmly stared back, his face indifferent and void of fear. Jiangya's eyes flashed and the coldness in his gaze slowly disappeared. He felt the aura of primeval essence on Fang Yuan's body. After realizing Fang Yuan's identity, he lit up with a smile and said warmly, "Ah, it's a junior brother." Everyone else came to the realization, and the looks they shot at Fang Yuan changed. No wonder this young teenager was not one bit afraid of a Gu master. It was because he was also one. Even though he was still attending the academy, his position was already different. "Lord Gu master, your wine." The waiter scurried over, smiling all over his face. Fang Yuan nodded at the young Gu master and took a jar of wine and walked out of the inn. 1. It means that he is putting in effort, yet he cannot see the results. Chapter 13. The bamboo forest under the moon. A bead of snow around 300 years ago, an incredible genius appeared in the Gu Yue clan. He was very talented and had already cultivated to the point of a rank 5 Gu master at a young age, and even had the possibility of going further. He was famous throughout Qingmao Mountain, had a bright future, and was the pinnacle of hope and responsibility in the clan's eyes. In the history of the Gu Yue clan, everyone spoke of him the most, the 4th clan head. Unfortunately, he sacrificed himself to protect his people and fought the equally powerful rank 5 Gu Master, the demonic flower wine monk. Even though he defeated the flower wine monk after a fierce battle, he let the devil get on his knees and beg for mercy. In the end, he was careless and got caught by the flower wine monk's sneak attack. The fourth head angrily executed the flower wine monk, but due to his own heavy injuries, he died an untimely death. This tragic incident had long since circulated until today, becoming a popular story among the Gu Yue clan. However, Fang Yuan knew that this story was not to be believed, because it had a very large loophole. In his previous life, a month later from now, a drunken Gu master who had been rejected by his lover lay down outside the village, so drunk he was like a fish. In the end, because of the overflowing smell of wine, it ended up attracting a liquor worm. The Gu master chased after the liquor worm and found the remains of the flower wine monk in a secret underground cave, also finding the flower wine monk's inheritance. This Gu master quickly hurried back to the clan and told them of the matter, causing a huge stir. As the storm gradually subsided, he also gained benefit from it. He obtained the liquor worm. His cultivation increased. The girlfriend who once abandoned him went back to his side, and he became the talk of the village for a while. When stories are passed down generation by generation, it is normal to change along the way. But in Fang Yuan's memories, the story of the Gu master discovering the treasure seemed quite authentic, yet he had a feeling that the story was hiding other truths. I was not aware of it at first, but in these few days while I searched and analyzed on the side, I feel that something feels out of place. The night grew dark, and as Fang Yuan walked in the bamboo forest that grew around the village, he reviewed through the clues he had so far in his head. If I put myself in his shoes and think about it, when I discover the flower wine monk's treasure, why would I not take it all for myself, but go and notify the clan instead? Don't even mention sense of clan honor. Everyone has greed in their hearts. What is it that would make that Gu master betray the greediness in his heart, even going as far as to be willing to abandon all interest and profit, and report this finding to the clan's top brass? The truth is always hidden inside the fog of history. Fang Yuan racked his brains, but he could not get the result. After all, the clues he had were too few. The only two clues he had could easily be true or false, so it could not be fully relied upon. Fang Yuan could not help but think of himself. No matter what, after buying this jar of green bamboo wine, I only have 2 primeval stones left on me. If I can't find the treasure, then I'll be in grave trouble. Today shall be considered the final gamble. It's all or nothing. However, he didn't have enough primeval stones to refine a Gu worm in the first place. So why not invest it in this wine and increase the chances of success? If it were in the case of other people, most of them would probably play it safe and save up the primeval stones. But in the case of Fang Yuan, the efficiency of doing so was too low. He would rather take the risk and gamble. You see, the people of the demonic faction love to take risks. Right now, the night grew thicker, the spring moon shaped like a bow. Clouds obscured the moonlight, as if coating the crescent moon with a thin sheet of gossamer. Because it just finished raining continuously for 3 days and 3 nights, the turbid energy between the mountains had been washed away clean, leaving behind the purest of freshness. This fresh air was pure like a piece of white paper, and was more effective in spreading the wine aroma around. That was the first reason why Fang Yuan was full of confidence tonight. The previous 7 days of searching was not without gain. At least it proved that the flower wine monk did not die in those places. This was the second reason for Fang Yuan's confidence. In the bamboo forest, the grass was luxuriant, the white flowers endless and the green spear bamboo straight like a pencil, the forest resembling a clump of jade rods. Fang Yuan opened the jar seal, releasing a thick wine aroma instantly. Green bamboo wine could be said as the Gu Yue village's #1 wine. This was the third reason for Fang Yuan's confidence tonight. With these 3 big reasons gathering together, if I want to succeed, it has to be tonight. Fang Yuan cheered in his heart as he slowly tilted the wine jar, pouring a small stream of wine, dripping it onto a stone. If those bunch of hunters saw this sight, they would have probably become insanely distressed. This wine is worth 2 whole primeval stones after all, but Fang Yuan was indifferent. The fragrant aroma quickly spread out into the night. The breeze was gentle, the faint aroma floating about and contaminating the bamboo forest. Fang Yuan stood at his spot, smelling the aroma. He waited for a while, yet he did not see any movement. All he heard was a nightingale crying in the near distance, its sound like a string of bells. His gaze was silent. He did not feel surprised, and he moved away, walking to a spot a few hundred meters away. In this place he did the same, pouring out a few drips of wine and waiting at the spot. He did the same thing over and over again, moving away to a few other different locations, dripping wine a few times. After all that, the green bamboo wine in the jar was only left with a bit. "This is the last time," Fang Yuan sighed. He tipped the wine jar over, the bottom facing the sky. All the remaining wine left in the jar flowed out. The wine sprinkled over the grass, letting the green grass sway about. The wild flowers were stained with wine, slightly lowering their heads. Fang Yuan stood with the last shred of hope in his bosom and gazed around. Right now the night was already very deep. A thick cloud had obscured the moonlight. The dark shadows were like a curtain, covering the bamboo grove. It was deadly silent all around, each strand of green spear bamboo standing alone, leaving a trail of lines that were straight up and down in Fang Yuan's pupils. He quietly stood at the spot, listening to his own clear breathing. Then he felt the small hope that he carried in his chest, slowly dissipating away, becoming nothing. It failed after all. His heart muttered, "Today I had 3 great advantages gathered together, yet I still failed, not even seeing the shadow of the liquor worm. This means that in future the rate of success will be lower. Right now I only have 2 primeval stones left, and I still need to refine the moonlight goo. I can't risk it anymore." The end result of taking a risk was often unsatisfactory, but when the result was ideal, the profit would be impressive. Fang Yuan liked taking risks, but he was not a gambling addict, and he was not someone who was bent on gambling back what he lost. He had his own limit. He was clear about his own capabilities. Right now, the 500 years of life experience was telling him it was time to stop. Sometimes life was like this. Often it was that there was that one goal that seemed so perfect, filled with temptation. It seemed so near, yet with so many twists and turns, the goal was constantly unfulfilled. It made people restless, thinking about it night and day. This is the helplessness of life, but it's also the charm of living. Fang Yuan laughed bitterly, turning to walk away. It was at this moment. A gust of wind blew like a gentle arm, lightly brushing away the clouds in the night sky. The clouds floated away to reveal the hidden moon. The crescent-shaped moon hanging in the sky was like a white jade lamp, pouring moonlight that was clear as water down onto the earth. The moonlight spilled over the bamboo forest, spilled onto the mountain rock, bathing onto the rivers and streams in the mountain, shedding onto Fang Yuan's body. Fang Yuan was dressed in plain clothing. Under the gentle touch of the moonlight, his young face became fairer. The darkness seemed to fade away in a flash, and taking its place was a field of snowy frost flowers. As if it was infected by the moonlight, the nightingale began to sing once more, but this time it was not just one but many. Scattered among the bamboo grove, they all tweeted in response. At the same time, a type of insect that inhabited huge mountains, the dragonpill crickets that were active under moonlight, started singing a rustling song of life. They were critters that only came out in the night. Their bodies emitted faint red light. At this moment they jumped out in droves, each of their bodies flashing with the brilliance of a red agate. At first glance, Fang Yuan thought that these dragonpill crickets were like jets of crimson water bouncing about, landing on the green grass and wild flowers, prancing under the moonlight in the bamboo grove. The bamboo forest was like a conscious pond. Under the moonlight, the green jade colors of the spear bamboo flashed in the brilliance of light and smooth jade. The enchanting sight of the dense trees and bright flowers in spring, Mother Nature was showing Fang Yuan her immense beauty at this moment. Fang Yuan unconsciously stopped in his footsteps, feeling as if he was in a heavenly land. He was already about to depart, but at this moment he subconsciously looked around. The clump of wild flowers and grass that he had poured the last dredges of wine over trembled gently in the wind, remaining empty. Fang Yuan laughed at himself and took back his line of sight. However, unexpectedly in the process of turning away, he saw a dot of white snow. This bead of snow was glued to a spear bamboo pole not far away. Under the moonlight it was like a suspended round pearl. Fang Yuan's two pupils expanded fiercely, his body trembling slightly. His heart dropped and started pumping faster each second. It was the liquor worm. Chapter 14. In the mountain crevice hides a profound theory. The liquor worm was shaped like a silkworm, its entire body giving out pearl white light. It was a little chubby and had a cute appearance. The liquor worm fed on wine and could fly. When it flew around, it would curl up into a ball, and its speed was very fast. Even though it was only a rank 1 goo, but it was worth even more than a few rank 2 goo. To make it into one's vital goo was way more beneficial than the moonlight goo. Right now, the liquor worm was glued to a bamboo pole merely 50 to 60 steps away from Fang Yuan. He held his breath, not closing in rashly but slowly walking backwards. He knew his distance was very near, but to really catch a liquor worm directly, it was an incredibly difficult task for a goo master, who just opened the primeval aperture like him. You could say there was totally no hope of success. Fang Yuan's was unable to see the liquor worm clearly, but in the darkness he could feel the liquor worm directing its vigilance at him. He slowly backed away gently, trying his best not to disturb the liquor worm. He knew that if the liquor worm was to fly away, he could never catch up with his own speed. He needed to wait until the liquor worm drank until it was drunk, and then with its flying speed slowed down he would have a chance to catch it. Seeing Fang Yuan retreated further away, the liquor worm crawling on the bamboo pole stirred. The strong aroma of wine before it was so tempting, so attracting, making the worm lost in a reverie. If it had saliva, it would have long been drooling a pool of saliva around it. But the liquor worm was incredibly wary and vigilant. Only after Fang Yuan retreated 200 steps back did it shrink a little and bounced into the air. When it fluttered high in the air, its body curled up into a ball, looking like a small and white rice dumpling. The little dumpling swept across the air in a round arc, floating down onto the grass that was sprinkled with green bamboo wine earlier. With delicious food right before its eyes, the liquor worm dropped its guard. It impatiently climbed onto a flower bud filled with some wine and popped its little head in, only leaving a chubby tail on the outside. The liquor worm was ravenous, and the green bamboo wine was so delicious. It opened its mouth wide and inhaled, very quickly lost in the deliciousness of its food, totally forgetting about Fang Yuan. At this moment, Fang Yuan started to approach cautiously. He could see the tail of the liquor worm outside the flower bud. This tail was just like a silkworm's tail, chubby and rounded. The light it emitted made people think of a pearl. At first the liquor worm's tail was hanging outside, unmoving. Then after a while this tail started to curl upwards, showing that it was drinking really happily. At the end, when Fang Yuan was only 10 steps away, its tail started wagging and swinging with a cheerful rhythm. It was totally drunk. Seeing this made Fang Yuan nearly laugh out. He did not continue walking forward, but patiently waited. If he rushed over right now, he would definitely have a huge chance on catching the liquor worm. But Fang Yuan's intention was to have this liquor worm guide him to the flower wine monk's remains. In a moment the liquor worm withdrew from the flower bud. Its body was fatter and its head swayed about, resembling a drunken man. Unexpectedly it did not realize Fang Yuan's presence. It climbed up onto another bright yellow flower and perched on the stamen, feeding heartily on the wine droplets there. This time after it had finished drinking, it finally felt full. Its body slowly shrank into a round ball and slowly flew up. When it was 1.5 meters above the ground, it leisurely flew in the direction of the deeper part of the bamboo forest. Fang Yuan quickly followed after its trail. The liquor worm was already heavily drunk, making it fly slower by half of its usual speed. Even though this was the case, Fang Yuan still had to run with all his might to follow after its shadow. The night was washing past his vision as the young teenager ran in the bamboo forest, chasing after a small bead of snow not far ahead. The moonlight was gentle, the breeze slow and steady. In the bamboo forest that was like a clear pond, the stalks of green spear bamboo flashed past before his eyes, quickly falling behind him. The ground was a green carpet of grass, riddled with blossoming wild flowers. There were small stones with moss growing, and the yellow shoots of bamboo. Fang Yuan's faint shadow was also speeding ahead on the ground, passing through the shadows that each stalk of bamboo cast on the earth like a black line. He tightly kept his sight on the bead of snow, gulping in huge amounts of fresh mountain air, ordering his legs to catch up in the midst of faint wine aroma in the air. Because of his speed, the moonlight looked like water to his eyes. Light and shadow moved frequently, like he was galloping in water filled with seaweed. The liquor worm flew out of the bamboo forest, and so did Fang Yuan. A sea of white flowers with a yellow spot in the middle borrowed the wind from his feet, scattering their petals. A group of dragonpill crickets resembling a flowing poem just so happened to move to the front. As Fang Yuan dashed through, there was a swoosh, and a red cloud bloomed before him, dispersing about a sea of red star fireflies that emerged from the cloud. A quiet mountain stream paved with pebbles, the gurgling water surface reflecting the spring moon in the night sky. With a few splashes, Fang Yuan waded across, creating thousands of silver-colored ripples. It was a pity that this stream, after so many ages, had its beautiful and precious stones trampled upon and broken. Fang Yuan was in hot pursuit, firmly following behind the liquor worm. Going upward the mountain stream, he could already hear the sound of a waterfall. After he turned around a sparse forest, he saw the liquor worm fly into a crevice in the middle of a boulder. Fang Yuan's eyes lit up and he stopped in his tracks. So it's here. He panted heavily, his heart beating against his chest like mad. With this one stop, he could feel his entire body covered in sweat, hot air surging throughout his body, accompanying his accelerating blood flow. Looking around, he found that this place was a shallow benchland one. Pebbles of various sizes covered the ground, the river's surface barely covering over the small stones. There were also blocks of gray boulders scattered freely in the area. Behind Qing Mao Mountain was a huge waterfall. The flow of the waterfall varied with the weather. It plummeted down to the earth, pounding out a deep pool. Beside the deep pool was the Bai clan village, a clan with powerful influence that was comparable to the Gu Yue village. The waterfall branched out to many smaller branches, and it was apparent that Fang Yuan was facing one of the many branches of a branch. On normal occasions, this benchland was dry, but due to the recent heavy rainfall that went on for 3 days and 3 nights, a shallow stream formed here. The source of the flowing stream was from the huge boulder that the liquor worm had entered into earlier. The boulder leaned against a vertical mountain wall. Small waterfalls that branched away from the main waterfall were like silver pythons that flowed down the mountain wall, hitting onto the boulder. After a considerably long time, the middle of this huge boulder had eroded away and formed a crevice. At this time, as the waterfall washed down, the water current gently roared. It was like a white curtain, completely obstructing the gap in the boulder. After observing his surroundings, Fang Yuan's breathing was no longer anxious. His eyes flashed with a hint of resolve. He walked to the boulder and took in a deep breath, and then he rushed in head first. The boulder gap was rather large, and 2 adult humans could walk side by side in it with no problems. What more to say with Fang Yuan, who was merely a 15-year-old teenage boy? Once he rushed in, the rapid currents pressured down on Fang Yuan's body. At the same time, the cold water quickly drenched him from head to toe. Fang Yuan battled against the water pressure, moving in quick steps forward. As he walked a few dozen steps, the water pressure started to lessen, but the space in the fissure also began to shrink, and Fang Yuan could only walk sideways. His ears were filled with the roaring of the water, the top of his head was a sheet of white, and deeper into the boulder was a black darkness. What was hiding in the darkness? It could be a poisonous serpent, but it could also be a poisonous gecko. Perhaps it was a trap set by the flower wine monk, or perhaps it was empty. Fang Yuan could only continue forward by walking sideways, slowly edging into the darkness. The water no longer washed over his head. The stone walls were covered in moss, grazing against his skin, feeling slippery. Soon he was swallowed by the darkness, and the stone crevice became narrower, squeezing around him. Gradually, even his skull could not rotate freely. Still, Fang Yuan gritted his teeth and continued forward. After walking another 20 more steps, he realized that there was a red shade of light in the darkness. At first he thought it was an illusion, but when he blinked and focused, he began to confirm that this was indeed light. This realization made him renew his spirit. He continued walking for another 50 to 60 steps, the red light growing brighter. In his eyes the light slowly expanded into a long, vertical and fine seam. He stretched out his left arm, suddenly feeling that the wall in front had bent away. Instantly he rejoiced, knowing that there was an enclosed space inside the huge boulder. With another few steps he finally rushed into this light seam. His eyes were greeted with the sight of an approximately 80 meters too wide enclosure. I have been walking for so long. With this distance I'd have long passed the boulder, so I should be in the heart of the mountain cliff right now. As he sized up this hidden space, he moved his hands and legs about, stretching his limbs. The entire room was filled with dim red light, but he could not tell where the light was coming from. The stone walls were damp and covered in moss, but the air here was very dry. On the walls there was also a few withering vines. The vines intertwined with each other, weaving across half of the wall's surface. There were even a few withering flowers growing on the vines. Fang Yuan looked at the remnants of these flowers and leaves, feeling somewhat familiar. These are wine sack flower goo and rice pouch grass goo. Suddenly a thought had crossed his mind, and he was able to recognize these withering stems and vines. Goo came in many shapes and forms. Some were like mineral rocks, such as the blue crystal form of the moonlight goo. Some came in the forms of worms, such as the silkworm-like liquor worm. There were also flowery grassy types, just like the wine sack flower goo and the rice pouch grass goo before Fang Yuan. These two types of goo were rank 1 natural goo. Just with pouring in primeval essence would they be able to grow. After growing up, the middle of the flower would secrete flower nectar wine, and the grass pouch would grow out fragrant rice. Fang Yuan moved his line of sight along the vines, and sure enough he discovered a heap of withered roots gathered into a ball-shaped clump at a corner. The liquor worm was resting on the clump of dead roots, sleeping soundly. It was already within easy reach. Fang Yuan walked over and took the liquor worm into his arms. Then he got onto his knees and pulled the dead vines apart, discovering a pile of skeleton bones bundled inside. "I've finally found you, flower wine monk." There was a smile on his lips as he saw this. Just as he was about to reach his hand out and strip away the remaining vines, suddenly, "Try touching it." A voice full of murderous intent suddenly sounded behind Fang Yuan. Chapter 15. History is written by the victorious in this secret cave. Someone's voice loomed behind all of a sudden. Even when it came to Fang Yuan, he could feel the hairs on the back of his neck standing, his scalp numb. He had been followed. Could it be that him repeatedly going out these few days had aroused the suspicion and attention of people? Or was it someone sent by his uncle? In his mind he even thought of the rank 1 Gu master that he encountered in the inn, the young man called Jiang Ya. In that short moment his mind flashed countless ideas and guesses, in addition to thinking of a solution. Fang Yuan could feel that in the short sentence, it was full of deep murderous intent. This made him secretly groan. He was only a rank 1 initial stage right now, and he did not even have a vital goo. To a goo master, this was the equivalent of having zero fighting ability. How was he supposed to fight? Too weak, he roared in his head. You have already been poisoned by my single gate poison goo. Without my other goo that acts as the counterpart to it, after 7 days you will turn into pus and blood and die, the voice said behind him. Fang Yuan gritted his teeth, his expression cold. Said in a low tone, "You want the liquor worm, I can give it to you." He slowly stood up, his actions careful. But at this moment another voice appeared. This voice was full of fear and said in a tremble, "I'll give it, I can give you anything, please just spare my life, O flower wine monk." Wait a minute, this is... Fang Yuan frowned and suddenly turned around in realization. He was met with the sight of light and shadow changing and fluctuating on the wall in front of him, a picture emerging. A lean and threatening goo master was standing at the top of a mountain. There was another goo master prostrating before him. Around the two goo masters was a collapsed pit, fragments and chunks of stone littering the area, showing the obvious scene of a fierce battle that just ended. Not far away from them was a group of old onlookers, their faces filled with anger and fear. In the middle of the scene, the victorious goo master lifted his head upwards and laughed loudly. "Ha ha ha, Gu Yue's hero, cultivating to rank 5 at such a young age. I thought you were quite something at first, but I didn't expect you to be so unbearable. HMPH. The laughing Gu master had long and thin eyes. He was dressed in long pink robes, his huge and wide sleeves swaying with the wind. The area where his robes intersected around his neck was loose and wide open, revealing his strong and pale chest muscles. The most eye-catching part of him was his bald head, shining without a single strand of hair. The flower wine monk. Fang Yuan immediately recognized the identity of this Gu master. To compare myself to Sir Flower Wine, I'm just a fart. I must have been unwell in the head to actually not recognize such a great person and offended Sir Flower Wine. Sir Flower Wine, please remember my clan's generous hospitality earlier and spare my life. The Gu master prostrating on the ground was shaking, cold sweat all over, tears and mucus mixing as he begged for mercy. Fang Yuan narrowed his eyes and carefully distinguished the two, realizing that the other Gu master was wearing the Gu Yue clan head uniform. Looking at the appearance, it was clear that this person was the 4th-generation clan leader. As for those aged onlookers, they were probably the clan elders of that generation. He, generous hospitality. You sure have the guts to say it. I was actually sincere in coming to trade with you, using primeval stones to buy your clan's moon orchids with a fair price. It was you who was harboring evil intentions, pretending to greet and take me in, telling me to take a seat at your banquet, intending to lace my liquor with a poisonous goo. You all have been looking down on me way too much. I have made a living under the sky with the name of flower wine. How could I possibly be poisoned this way? The flower wine monk pointed at the kneeling 4th-generation clan leader, sneering. If you cooperated fairly, none of this would have happened. In the end, you just wanted to use my head to raise your reputation and fame. You only have yourself to blame for dying. Sir, please spare my worthless life. The 4th-generation clan head shouted in dismay, his knees scraping against the ground. He quickly crawled over to the flower wine monk's feet and hugged against his thigh. Sir, my clan has a spirit spring which produces primeval stones. We also planted huge numbers of moon orchids in an underground cave. I am willing to take in your enslavement goo and become your servant. My life and death are at a whim. I am willing to devote a lifelong servitude to you, sir. Fang Yuan watched speechlessly, while the few elders in the picture looked even more uncertain. The flower wine monk narrowed his eyes. His anger had already calmed down. His eyes flashed and he said, HMPH, the enslavement goo is precious beyond reasoning. It is a rank 5 goo. Do you really think I would have one? However, you have been infected by my single gate poison goo. Only I can cure the poison, so I'm not afraid of you disobeying. Since that is the case, your clan has to give me 3,000 stalks of moon orchids every week, also 3,000 primeval stones. I will come around every now and then to pick up the goods and temporarily cure your poison, sparing your useless life. Thank you so much for your mercy, sir. Thank you so much for your mercy, sir. The fourth generation clan head cried repeatedly, kowtowing non-stop. His head bled continuously as it bumped against the mountain rock. HMPH, stop kowtowing. I despise groveling people like you the most. What so-called gu you a genius, strong rank 5 fighter, how unworthy of your name. You better serve me properly. This is also regarding your life The flower wine monk suddenly cried out, his face making a horrified expression. He kicked away the fourth generation clan head with his leg, his body swaying. He frantically backtracked a few big steps, yelling at the fourth generation clan head, "How do you still have goo?" The fourth generation clan head was kicked at the pit of his stomach and he spat out a mouthful of blood. He got up with a painstaking effort, his face revealing a scheming smile. "Heh heh heh, anybody has the right to punish people of the demonic faction. This goo is called Munchido, it is the best at hiding. Even though it is only rank 4, but it has the ability to restrict the usage of the primeval sea and primeval essence. Demon, you and I have been fighting fiercely. You don't have many goo on you anymore. How could you possibly restrain the Munchido goo? Just obediently surrender and become my servant. As long as you serve me until I am happy, you will still have a chance to live." The flower wine monk flew into a rage and roared, "To hell with you." His voice had barely faltered away when his body surged forward like a bolt of electricity. A punch landing onto the fourth generation clan head's heart. The fourth generation clan leader did not expect the flower wine monk to be so radical. Even if his primeval sea was threatened, the flower wine monk was unwilling to compromise. A huge force came and he flew into the air, his body falling onto the ground like a broken sack. Thump. He spouted out a huge mouthful of fresh blood, the red liquid mingled with countless bits of internal organs. "Have you gone mad? We could have totally settled this over a discussion." He stared daggers at the flower wine monk, his lips moving with great effort. His sentence went unfinished, for his legs gave way and his head crooked to the side. He died, clan head. Men of the demonic path are all insane. Kill him, kill this demon. Avenge the clan leader. He has been inflicted by the Munchido goo. He can't just simply use his primeval essence anymore. Over time, even his primeval essence will be threatened. The elders who were watching at the sidelines all roared in fury and swarmed the area. "Ha ha ha, all those who are looking for death, come." The flower wine monk cried into the air. Facing the elders charging at him, he rushed at them head first. A fierce battle ensued and the flower wine monk quickly had the upper hand. Very soon all the elders had collapsed onto the ground, some of them injured and the rest dead. Just as the flower wine monk was about to finish off the surviving elders, his facial expression suddenly changed and he covered a hand over his abdomen. "Damn! I'll come back in future to deal with you lot," said the flower wine monk. He stared daggers at a few of the elders, and his body moved like electricity as he fled into the mountain woods, disappearing without a trace in the blink of an eye. Chapter 16. Taking as much as possible that one can take, try touching it. You have already been poisoned by my single gate poison goo. Without my other goo that acts as the counterpart to it, after 7 days you will turn into pus and blood and die. To compare myself to Sir Flower Wine, I'm just a fart. I must have been unwell in the head to actually not recognize such a great person and offended Sir Flower Wine. Sir Flower Wine, please remember my clan's generous hospitality earlier and spare my life. The scene replayed itself over for the second time on the wall. Fang Yuan remained silent. When the motion picture started to repeat itself for the third time, he finally sighed faintly and said, "I see." This method of leaving a moving picture with sound on the wall was probably the flower wine monk's doing with the help of a photo audio goo. This goo was able to record down imagery and project it out later. The photo audio goo fed on light and sound to survive. For some unknown reason, this secret cave emitted red light, while at the same time the stone crevice was connected to the outside world, so it would not completely isolate the sounds outside. Right now Fang Yuan could still hear the roaring of the smaller waterfalls. Thus the faux audio goo was able to live on in this secret cave. A moment ago when Fang Yuan ripped away the withered vines, he had probably alarmed the faux audio goo hiding in the stone wall. As long as one is not stupid, with mere guesswork one could tell that this moving image was authentic. Back then, the fourth-generation clan head tried to plot against the flower wine monk, but he failed. After he lost in the battle, he tried a sneak attack. Even though it repelled away the latter, he eventually died because of it. This part of history was considered disgraceful, and the remaining surviving clan elders decided to tamper with the truth. They reversed the roles of the fourth-generation clan head and the flower wine monk. The flower wine monk became the one who was defeated in battle and tried a sneak attack, and later died on the spot. On the other hand, the fourth-generation leader was turned into the justified and perfect hero. But this story itself had a big loophole. The flower wine monk had clearly died on the spot, so his corpse should be in the hands of the Gu Yue clan. But why was another pile of remains found? In his previous life, the Gu master who found it had probably been terrified after seeing the moving image. Those surviving elders had long been dead, but to prevent the truth of the flower wine monk from returning, this truth was probably kept secret by the top brass of the clan. That Gu master realized that if he single-handedly took the treasure it would be a huge risk. If people investigated and found that he was involved with the flower wine monk in future, the top brass would naturally execute him. Thus, after making his choice, he did not dare to hide away this treasure, but instead make a decision to notify the top brass. By doing so, it would prove his loyalty to the clan. His subsequent circumstances would also show that he made a wise choice. However, even if he did that, it didn't mean that Fang Yuan would do the same. I went through a pretty rough time searching for this treasure, so I should take everything for myself. Why should I share it with others? So what if I've been found out? Without braving the risks, where would you get profit? That Gu master is really cowardly. Fang Yuan smiled coldly, no longer caring about the moving image that kept repeating on the stone wall. He turned around and stretched his hand, using his strength to pull apart the dead vines and roots. The flower wine monk's remains were also affected. It was originally intact, but right now it was being broken into several pieces. Fang Yuan could hardly care. He kicked away a piece of leg bone that was in the way and squatted again, searching through the remains. Firstly, he found a bag of primeval stones. When he opened them, he only found 15 pieces. Old miser, Fang Yuan spat. The flower wine monk's outer appearance looked flashy, but unexpectedly he only had so little money put aside. However, he quickly thought of the reason. The flower wine monk went through a fierce battle. Add on to the fact that he got tainted by the Munchido Gu, so he would definitely have used primeval stones to heal his injuries. To be able to leave behind 15 pieces was actually not bad already. After that, he found a few dead Gu remains. Most of them were flower and grass variety, and had all completely withered away. Gu are also living creatures, so they also need food to survive, and most of them are picky. Though the grass Gu and flower Gu need less food, but in this secret cave there was not even a single ray of sunshine. And after that, there was nothing. The flower wine monk was on the same level as the fourth-generation clan leader. After fighting a fierce battle, he fought with around 10 elders right after. His own Gu were mostly consumed, and up to this stage, as he wanted to heal his injuries, he grew the wine sack flower Gu and the rice pouch grass Gu here. Yet in the end, because of the Munchido Gu, he was dragged to death. After 300 years, the Gu in his possession also died away. The only ones left were the faux audio Gu on the wall and the liquor worm. This liquor worm was probably reliant on the wine sack flower Gu and barely lived through until today. But as the wine sack flower Gu withered away one by one, it also lost its food supply. This prompted the liquor worm to go outside and look for wild wine sack flowers. Then in this night, It was attracted by the aroma of the green bamboo wine and came before Fang Yuan. The faux audio goo can only record once, since it's a one-time use goo. Looks like the liquor worm is my greatest gain here. No wonder that Goo Master decided to report to the clan. Looks like it was because the profit was too small, and not worth such a huge risk. A sort of understanding rose into Fang Yuan's heart. In his memories, that Goo Master was already rank 3, while the liquor worm was just a rank 1 goo. To Fang Yuan it was more precious, but to that Goo Master it was pretty much nothing. However, it was clear that due to his report, the clan gave him a big reward. Should I also tell the clan? Fang Yuan thought for a moment, then he pushed away this idea. The flower wine monk's treasure seemed to be just the liquor worm and the primeval stones, but that was not the case. The most valuable thing was actually the wall that hid the faux audio goo. In other words, it was the moving image that did not stop repeating on the wall. This image could entirely be sold to other villages. Trust in the fact that the top brass of the 2 other villages on Qingmao Mountain must be very interested in this sort of evidence that could strike hard onto the conviction of a clan. What? You said something about a sense of loyalty and honor to the clan. I'm so sorry, Fang Yuan does not have one bit of that. Moreover, this moving image isn't even some kind of strong force that can destroy the entire clan. It won't do much substantial damage. The indifferent nature of the clan will also not look at Fang Yuan with importance. He needed to rely on his own hard work and find cultivation resources. In the early stage of cultivation, he needed to borrow the powers around him more. Count on the clan, heh heh. Fang Yuan sneered in his heart. How can I be so naive like my past life? Do not depend on anyone. You must rely on yourself on everything in this world. After making sure that he had ransacked every corner of the cave, Fang Yuan began his way back following the original road home. Holding against the water pressure and squeezing past the boulder, he returned outside the mountain. Looking back at this huge boulder, Fang Yuan suddenly thought of his past life. It was said that the remains were found in an underground secret cave. But how was this place underground? It was clearly in the inside of the mountain wall. No wonder he couldn't find it for 7 days straight even though he wasted so much effort. Looks like in his past life after the clan found out about this place, the first thing they did was to destroy the wall with the image, and then go about spreading a truth riddled with lies to mislead the clanspeople. To be able to find this place tonight was partly due to luck, partly due to hard work, and the biggest reason would be the green bamboo wine. This green bamboo wine was really rich. It could be said to be the best in Qingmao Mountain. Perhaps in his past life, after that Goo Master lost his lover, the wine that he had been drinking was this wine. But all of this was no longer important. The flower wine monk's treasure had been unearthed and ransacked by Fang Yuan. Although in the end it was rather disappointing, it was also reasonable. The most important was that Fang Yuan's original goal, liquor worm, was in his hands, and the item he needed the most, primeval stones, was also gotten. Next up, I will need to set my heart on holding myself in the inn refining this goo. As long as I have a vital goo, I can return to the academy and be qualified to stay in the academy dormitories. I'll also be able to borrow the clan resources to cultivate. I can only stay in this inn for 1 or 2 times. If I stay too long, the cost is too much. Fang Yuan pondered, his footsteps never ceasing as he hurried back to the village. He was originally left with 2 primeval stones, but now he gained 15 pieces, so the total is 17 pieces. But to a Goo Master, this small amount of primeval stones mean nothing. Chapter 17. Starting to refine the liquor worm with my C-grade talent, the amount of my primeval C in the aperture is only 44%. The speed of goo using up primeval essence is way faster than my own recovery rate. If I want to refine a goo, I would need to borrow external help, which means I need to waste primeval stones. The weaker the goo's will, the smaller the resistance, the easier it becomes for me to refine it. However, any living creature will always have the will to live. To refine the moonlight goo, I would at least require 5 primeval stones. At the most, I'd need 8 pieces. Right now, to refine the liquor worm, I would need at least 11 pieces. At the most, I would need 16 pieces. Although the liquor worm was also a rank 1 goo like the moonlight goo, but it was definitely rarer. Thus the difficulty of the refinement process also increased. In other words, even though right now Fang Yuan had 17 primeval stones, but just to refine the liquor worm he would at most be left with 6 pieces, or at least 1 primeval stone. In the night, the bright crescent gave off clear and pure moonlight. The moonlight was like the Lady Saint's gentle hand, lightly stroking over the Gu Yue village. Along the way the bamboo houses were like jade, standing in great numbers. The night breeze blew slowly. Under this moonlight, Fang Yuan found his way back to the inn. The inn door had already closed. Fang Yuan banged on the door. I hear you, I hear you. Who is it knocking on the door at this late time? The inn worker grumbled as he opened the door, his eyes puffy from sleep. But when he saw Fang Yuan standing at the door, all the displeasure and sleepiness from his expression changed, and he bent his waist and said with a flattering smile, "Ah, it's his young lordship. This little one is very lucky to be able to open the door for his lordship." Fang Yuan nodded his head, his expression cold with indifference, and walked into the inn. His expression made the worker laugh in a more humble manner, and he took the initiative to ask, "My lord, are you hungry? Would you like me to notify the kitchens and make some small dishes for you as supper?" "No need," Fang Yuan shook his head and only ordered, "Go and prepare some hot water for me, I would like to wash myself." "Yes," the worker immediately nodded, "My lord, go on to your room first. I guarantee you, the hot water will be sent over immediately." Fang Yuan let out a noise of approval and went up the stairs, heading towards the second floor. The worker watched Fang Yuan's back, his 2 eyes glittering in the light, revealing an expression of jealousy. "This is a Gu master. Oh, if only I had the talent to cultivate, how good that would be." He shook his fists, sighing deeply. These words floated into Fang Yuan's ears and he smiled bitterly in his heart. A Gu master had the power to transcend mortals, becoming a man above men. But in this process, the price that was to be paid was also very high. The first difficult problem was financial resources. A Gu master needed primeval stones to cultivate. Battles also required primeval stones. Refining Gu also needed primeval stones. Trading was also not an exception. Without primeval stones, how could cultivation be possible? This point was a difficult position that, being an ordinary mortal who watched from the sidelines, the inn worker would not understand. Just like earlier in the evening, the young Gu master Jiang vented his anger and displeasure on the hunters when he dropped their wine jars. His meaning was, he himself could not bear to spend primeval stones to drink this green bamboo wine. Yet these hunters, who were just ordinary men, actually had such money to spare. To take a glimpse at the whole picture, just that meaning alone could tell a lot about the cultivation situation of a Gu master. The strength of a Gu master was great. They achieved more than a common mortal, but the price was also great. Many a time using every single piece of primeval stone needed great consideration, especially when it came to lower-ranked Gu masters. Do not be fooled by the glorious surface. In reality, the life of a Gu master is constantly strained by money. Not to mention, as the realm of a Gu master increases, the resources they require also increase. Without proper backing, it is very difficult for a Gu master's road to cultivation. Fang Yuan thought of his previous life and had deep understanding of this reality. He returned to his room. Just after he lit the lamp, the inn worker came up with a basin of hot water. Of course, there were cloth towels and other toiletries. Fang Yuan let the worker leave and closed the room door. He put down the door latch, washed himself, and got up to his bed. Although his body was feeling a little tired, his heart still flared with a surge of excitement. I finally got my hands on the liquor worm. The liquor worm is rarer than the moonlight Gu, because in a sense it is a Gu that increase a Gu master's latent talent. Fang Yuan sat cross-legged on the bed and took out the liquor worm. The liquor worm was still sleeping soundly. Its body size was slightly bigger than the moonlight goo, soft and white like a silkworm. Under the light, its body was shrouded in a layer of faint, wavering light, just like a pearl's mellow luster. Two little eyes resembling two black sesame seeds were mounted on its chubby white head, making it appear charmingly naive. Placed in his hand, it was not heavy. Its weight was about half a chicken egg. When smelling it carefully, its body exuded a whiff of wine aroma. This fragrance was not the aroma of green bamboo wine, but the liquor worm's own fragrance. The smell was faint and misty, as if it was not there. Fang Yuan's nose twitched as he inhaled the fragrance of the liquor worm. The wine fragrance moved straight downwards into the aperture, entering into the green-copper primeval sea. The primeval sea surged and rippled for a moment, quickly absorbing in the wine. A gleam of pure and refined primeval essence was produced. The other primeval essence had an emerald green color, shining with a metallic copper luster. However, this primeval essence was a pale green, and it was more condensed than the original primeval essence. This was the primeval essence that a rank 1 middle stage goo master could produce. Aware of this gleam of pale green primeval essence in his green copper sea, Fang Yuan revealed a satisfied smile. Right now my cultivation base is just that of a rank 1 initial stage, but with the liquor worms condensing, after the primeval essence is refined, I will be able to have rank 1 middle realm primeval essence. The beauty of this benefit is something that cannot be said in 1 or 2 sentences. But very soon, he took back his smile. However, right now, I have yet to fully master the liquor worm. It is only when I refine the liquor worm and turn it into my vital goo, then I will be able to freely use it and later on with maximum efficiency, refine my primeval essence. Thinking up to this point, he no longer hesitated and began to draw out a jet of green copper primeval essence from his primeval sea. The primeval essence tightly wrapped around the liquor worm, bringing it into the air before Fang Yuan, and started to invade its body. The liquor worm felt its life at danger and woke up immediately. It began to struggle violently, using its own power to drive out Fang Yuan's primeval essence. This liquor worm has a really strong resistance. Fang Yuan's complexion turned grave as he felt the consumption rate of his primeval essence go beyond more than double of what the moonlight goo had consumed. No matter what, I have to refine the liquor worm. His two eyes flashed with a firm light as he continued pouring primeval essence into the liquor worm. In the room, the candles on the table quietly burned, shining a bright light in the middle of the room while the far corners of the walls were dark. The candlelight radiated on Fang Yuan's face, but he had already closed his eyes, gathering all his focus onto the liquor worm. A continuous jet of green copper-colored primeval essence that resembled a jet of mist emitted out from Fang Yuan's whole body. Then it gathered together and firmly wrapped around the liquor worm. The liquor worm hovered in the air, its distance less than a feet away from Fang Yuan's face. It struggled with all its might in the midst of the green copper primeval essence. Time slipped away quietly. As the candles burned, they became smaller and the light grew dimmer. The crescent outside the window had slowly gone down, and then a new day arrived. The morning light squeezed through the narrow crack in the window and shone into the room. It was like the window had a light edge. Fang Yuan opened his eyes and looked at the liquor worm in front of him. The liquor worm's white body had a shade of green color. This was the result of Fang Yuan's effort after half a night. However, it was clear that this volume of green color was not even 1% of the liquor worm's body. Fang Yuan's face looked grave. This liquor worm's will was way too tenacious, and its resistance was incredibly strong. Simply put, this was beyond a rank 1 goo's boundary. This goo was most probably the flower wine monk's vital goo. The flower wine monk was a rank 5 master, so this liquor worm was originally rank 5. But because it went through all those years without enough food, pretty much full in one moment and starving in the next, so its grade also fell. Right now it is left at the level of rank 1, yet its will is still as tough as a rock. Fang Yuan had guessed the truth. This liquor worm was originally the flower wine monk's vital goo. Its original will had been wiped clean and refined to the end. It had accompanied the flower wine monk throughout all his battles, passing through the underground world. After the flower wine monk died, his strong will continued existing in the liquor worm. Right now, with Fang Yuan trying to refine the liquor worm, it actually meant fighting against the flower wine monk's will. This was way more difficult than trying to refine a natural goo. A human's will is generally stronger than a natural goo. When facing death, humans were able to produce strength that even they themselves could not imagine. Not to mention that the flower wine monk was a master of the demonic faction. He came and went by himself, going up and down the underground world. His will was more tenacious than the masters of his level from the righteous faction. To refine this liquor worm in a month is impossible, unless there is a strong master who can use a rank 2 or rank 3 goo's breath to pressure this liquor worm and suppress the will inside the worm's body to the lowest limit. Under this kind of help, then, will I be able to do twice as much with half the effort? As he pondered, Fang Yuan could not help but sigh. His parents had died while his aunt and uncle were plotting against him. He himself did not have any backing, so where could he possibly find external aid? If he had a grade talent, there might still be a chance, but he was only a C-grade talent. Everyone in the clan were not optimistic about him, so who would be willing to expend such energy to come and help him? More crucially, he could not expose the existence of the liquor worm. There was no liquor worm in the Gu Yue village, and Fang Yuan was not able to explain about the origins of this liquor worm. If it was exposed, there was a huge possibility that the top brass would find out and link it to the case of the flower wine monk. It was too easy to think of a relationship between the two. Based on this fact, 17 primeval stones will not be enough. I'd need at least 30 primeval stones. How troublesome, but no matter how hard it is, I will still want to refine this liquor worm. Fang Yuan's own will was like metal, and he was already determined to refine the liquor worm. The importance of the vital goo was huge. It would greatly influence the future of a goo master's cultivation direction. Although the liquor worm was not the world's best choice for a vital goo, it was still much better than the moonlight goo. It was also the best option in Fang Yuan's present situation. Growl. At this moment, Fang Yuan's stomach came up with a cry of protest. After a whole night without sleep and putting full effort into refining the liquor worm, Fang Yuan was naturally hungry. I guess I'll go and fill my stomach first and think of a way to accumulate primeval stones. Fang Yuan rubbed his belly and went downstairs. He went to the cafeteria and picked a seat at the corner, ordering a few kinds of breakfast dishes. Just as he was beginning to eat, his younger brother Gu Yue Fang Zheng appeared. "Big brother, why are you staying at the inn? Why didn't you go back home and sleep last night?" His brother was very straightforward, his tone carrying the implication that it was demanding